Most people, especially as we get older, are taught that the refrigerator is the safest place for food. We tuck almost everything inside, believing that the cold will preserve freshness and protect us from spoilage. But here's the surprising truth. Not every food thrives in the fridge. In fact, some of the most common items in your kitchen lose their nutrients, their flavor, or even become harmful when stored in the cold. For seniors, this is more than just a matter of taste. The way we store food directly affects digestion, nutrient absorption, and overall health. A tomato robbed of its vitamin-rich flavor, or a potato that turns starchy and forms harmful compounds, may seem small, but day after day, these choices shape the vitality of your body and the comfort of your joints, your digestion, even your energy levels. And so today, we are going to uncover 10 foods that should never be refrigerated. You'll learn not only which foods, but why, the science behind the changes that occur in the cold, and how to store them properly instead. My hope is that by the end, you'll look at your fridge with new eyes and perhaps even find that the foods you enjoy taste fresher, richer, and more nourishing when kept the right way. Now, let me ask you this. How many of you currently keep your potatoes, tomatoes, or even onions in the fridge? You might be surprised to learn that those habits could be doing more harm than good. Let's begin with the very first food on our list, one that almost every household refrigerates, yet truly shouldn't: potatoes. Potatoes are a staple in many homes. They're filling, versatile, and a comfort food that has fed generations. But here's the hidden danger. When you place potatoes in the refrigerator, the cold doesn't simply preserve them. Instead, it triggers a process called retrogradation. The starch in the potato begins to break down into simple sugars. Now, why does that matter? When these sugar-laden potatoes are later baked, fried, or roasted, they can form a chemical called acrylamide. Acrylamide is not a nutrient, it's a toxin. Research links it to nerve damage and even increased cancer risk. And while younger people may shrug off exposure, seniors with slower detoxification pathways and more sensitive nervous systems need to be especially cautious. Beyond safety, refrigeration also changes the very essence of the potato. Have you ever cooked a refrigerated potato and noticed a slightly sweet taste or a gritty texture? That's the sugar at work, altering not only the flavor, but also the way it cooks. Mashed potatoes lose their fluff, roasted potatoes don't crisp the same, and even a simple boiled potato tastes off. So what should we do instead? Potatoes thrive in a cool, dark, and well-ventilated place. A pantry, cellar, or even a paper bag in a shaded cupboard is far better than the refrigerator. Keep them away from onions, as the gases they release can cause each other to spoil faster. And here's something I often ask seniors in my workshops. Have you noticed small green spots or sprouts on your potatoes? That's another sign of poor storage. Those green spots are solanine, a natural toxin that can upset digestion. It's the potato's way of defending itself. If you see sprouting or greening, cut those parts away generously, or better yet, avoid using those potatoes altogether. When stored correctly, potatoes can last for weeks without losing their texture or safety. This makes them not only healthier, but also more reliable in the kitchen. Now that we've uncovered the truth about potatoes, let's turn to another food that many seniors mistakenly refrigerate, a fruit that loses its vibrant nutrients and flavor when placed in the cold: tomatoes. Tomatoes are one of nature's richest gifts, packed with vitamin C, potassium, and the powerful antioxidant lycopene. They do far more than add color to a salad or depth to a stew. Lycopene in particular is well studied for its ability to protect the heart, lower inflammation, and even reduce the risk of certain cancers. For seniors, tomatoes can be a gentle daily medicine, supporting circulation, skin health, and joint comfort. But here's the tragedy. The moment a tomato goes into the refrigerator, much of this magic begins to fade. Cold temperatures damage the delicate membranes inside the tomato's cells, which is why refrigerated tomatoes often taste watery and mealy. The cold also interferes with the production of the natural compounds that give tomatoes their sweet, tangy flavor. This is why a garden-fresh tomato tastes so different from one pulled out of the fridge, and it doesn't stop at taste. Studies have shown that refrigeration can reduce the bioavailability of lycopene, the very compound that makes tomatoes so protective. That means even if you eat the tomato, you aren't receiving its full health benefits. For seniors who depend on nutrient-rich foods to keep bones strong and hearts healthy, this is a hidden loss. So what's the alternative? Tomatoes belong on the counter, at room temperature, where their flavors continue to ripen and deepen. A simple wooden bowl on the kitchen table is the perfect place. Once fully ripe, if you need to keep them a day or two longer, use them quickly in cooking rather than chilling them. Here's something I'd love to know from you. Do you remember the taste of tomatoes from your childhood garden, so rich and full of flavor? Compare that to today's store-bought refrigerated tomatoes. The difference is enormous, isn't it? And much of that comes down to how they are stored. So if potatoes carry a risk in the cold and tomatoes lose their very essence, what about onions? Many households keep them side by side with potatoes in the fridge, but this practice can quietly shorten their life and spoil their strength. Let's look closer at onions. Onions are a medicinal food as much as they are a culinary one. For centuries, they've been valued for their natural antibacterial properties, their ability to thin mucus, and their sulfur compounds that support detoxification in the liver. For seniors, onions can play a quiet but important role in maintaining circulation, immunity, and digestive strength. But here's the mistake many households make: storing onions in the refrigerator. Onions are naturally dry, layered bulbs that need air circulation. The refrigerator traps them in a cold, damp environment where moisture condenses on their skins. That dampness seeps inside, breaking down their protective layers and causing them to soften, spoil, and even grow mold far sooner than they should. Worse still, once cut, an onion in the fridge becomes a magnet for bacteria. Its high sulfur content means it absorbs odors and microbes quickly, which is why a half onion in the fridge often smells and tastes strange after only a short time. Some even believe that cut onions left too long can harbor harmful bacteria. While the science on that is debated, one truth is clear: freshness and safety decline rapidly in the cold. So what's the best practice? Whole onions should be stored in a cool, dry, ventilated space. A basket, mesh bag, or even a paper bag works perfectly. Keep them away from potatoes because the gases they each release speed up spoilage. As for cut onions, the safest approach is to use them promptly. If you must store one, seal it tightly in glass and use it within a day. Now let me ask you this: have you ever reached into your fridge for an onion only to find it soft, mushy, or sprouting? That's the refrigerator working against you, not for you. Onions clearly don't belong in the cold, but this brings us to another household staple that many seniors refrigerate without realizing the consequences. It's golden, it's sweet, and it never spoils unless the fridge interferes. Let's move to honey. Honey is often called liquid gold, and for good reason. For thousands of years, it has been prized not just as a sweetener, but as a natural medicine. It contains enzymes, trace minerals, antioxidants, and antibacterial compounds that support wound healing, soothe sore throats, and even strengthen the immune system. Archaeologists have discovered pots of honey in ancient Egyptian tombs, still perfectly preserved after thousands of years. That's how stable honey is when stored correctly. But here is where many people go wrong. They put honey in the refrigerator. Cold temperatures cause honey to crystallize. Instead of staying smooth and golden, it turns gritty and hard, making it difficult to use. Some seniors mistake this crystallization as honey going bad, when in reality, the cold has simply disrupted its natural structure. This crystallization doesn't just change the texture, it also dulls the flavor and makes the honey less enjoyable to consume. More importantly, refrigeration adds unnecessary moisture, and honey's low water content is the very reason it resists bacteria and spoilage. When exposed to cold and condensation, that balance can be disturbed. The truth is, honey does not need the refrigerator ever. The best place for it is in a sealed jar at room temperature, away from direct sunlight. It will stay safe, delicious, and medicinal indefinitely. If your honey has already crystallized, don't throw it out. Place the jar in warm, not boiling water, and it will return to its smooth, golden state. Here's a question for you. How many of you have tossed out honey because you thought it spoiled after hardening? Knowing the difference between crystallization and true spoilage could save you both money and health benefits. So if honey is harmed by refrigeration, what about oils? Many seniors keep olive oil in the fridge thinking they're preserving it, but the cold changes its very nature. Next, we'll explore olive oil and why it too should be kept far from the refrigerator. Olive oil is one of the healthiest oils available, especially for seniors, rich in monounsaturated fats and powerful antioxidants like polyphenols. It protects the heart, lowers inflammation, and even supports brain health. In fact, the Mediterranean diet, famous for its role in longevity, places olive oil at the very center. But here's the problem. Many people tuck their olive oil into the refrigerator thinking they are extending its life. In reality, the cold makes olive oil solidify and turn cloudy. While this change can be reversed when brought back to room temperature, repeated chilling and warming can damage the delicate antioxidants and reduce its health benefits. Another issue is convenience. Cold, hardened olive oil is difficult to pour and use. Many seniors end up leaving it out on the counter anyway, unknowingly exposing it to light and air, which are the true enemies of olive oil. When olive oil is stored improperly, it oxidizes, develops rancid compounds, and loses much of its nutritional power. So what's the best storage method? Olive oil should be kept in a dark glass bottle or a sealed tin, placed in a cool cupboard away from the stove and direct sunlight. This preserves both its flavor and its medicinal compounds. Here's something I'd like to ask you. When you buy olive oil, do you notice whether it's in a dark glass bottle or a clear one? That small detail can make a huge difference in whether your oil keeps its healing power or degrades on your shelf. We've now seen how oils suffer in the fridge, but what about fruits? Many seniors place bananas in the refrigerator without realizing that the cold changes them from the inside out. Let's look at why bananas don't belong in the fridge. Bananas are one of the most loved and accessible fruits worldwide. For seniors, they're especially helpful, rich in potassium to support heart health and regulate blood pressure, full of fiber for digestion, and packed with quick natural energy. They're gentle on the stomach and easy to chew, making them a perfect snack for all ages. But bananas are tropical fruits. They were never designed to withstand cold. When placed in the refrigerator, the skin quickly turns black and leathery. This is not just cosmetic. The cold disrupts the natural ripening process inside the fruit. Instead of ripening evenly, the enzymes that break down starch into natural sugars are slowed or stopped, leaving the fruit with a strange texture and uneven taste. In addition, refrigeration can dull the banana's aroma and sweetness. For seniors who may already have a reduced sense of taste and smell, this makes bananas far less enjoyable and satisfying. So what's the best way to store them? Keep bananas at room temperature, ideally on a hanging rack where air can circulate around them. If you want a slow ripening, separate the bananas from the bunch. Ripening gases are strongest at the stem, and if they do ripen too quickly, peel and freeze them for smoothies or baking, but don't refrigerate them whole. Here's a question for you. Do you prefer your bananas with a little green firmness or soft and fully ripe? Understanding your preference will guide how you store them. From bananas, let's turn to another fruit often placed in the refrigerator, but that loses its vibrant flavor and nutrients in the cold: apples. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. We've all heard this saying, and for good reason. Apples are rich in fiber, particularly pectin, which supports digestion and stabilizes blood sugar. They're also full of vitamin C and powerful polyphenols that protect the heart and reduce inflammation. For seniors, apples can be one of the simplest, most protective daily fruits. But here's where many go wrong: keeping apples in the refrigerator. While cold temperatures do keep apples from ripening too quickly, they also rob them of their natural flavor and crispness. The starch inside apples continues to break down in the cold, making the flesh mealy over time instead of crisp and juicy. Another hidden truth: apples release a natural gas called ethylene. This gas accelerates ripening, not just of apples themselves, but of nearby fruits and vegetables as well. In the confined space of a refrigerator, Ethylene builds up and causes everything around the apples to spoil faster. That's why bananas, leafy greens, and even carrots may wilt quickly if kept next to apples. The better way? Apples should be stored at room temperature in a fruit bowl where air can circulate. If you've bought too many and want to extend their life, keep them in a cool pantry or cellar, not the fridge. And if they do begin to soften, don't waste them. Turn them into applesauce, a smoothie, or even bake them with cinnamon for a nourishing dessert. Let me ask you this. Do you remember the taste of biting into a crisp apple straight from a tree? That same flavour can be preserved at home when apples are stored naturally, away from the chill of the fridge. Now, we've looked at apples, but another fruit suffers even more dramatically in the refrigerator, the avocado. Soft, creamy, and full of heart-healthy oils, avocados simply do not belong in the cold until the moment they're ripe. Avocados are one of the richest natural sources of healthy fats. They're packed with monounsaturated fats that protect the heart, vitamin E to nourish the skin, and fibre to keep digestion smooth. For seniors, avocados are especially valuable. They support brain function, stabilise blood sugar, and provide steady energy without sharp spikes or crashes. But here's the catch. Avocados ripen through a natural process that depends on enzymes and the release of ethylene gas. When you put an unripe avocado in the refrigerator, the cold halts that process almost completely. Instead of ripening evenly, the fruit can stay hard for weeks and then suddenly turn brown and mushy inside. Even ripe avocados don't benefit much from refrigeration. The cold accelerates browning once the fruit is cut, making it lose its creamy texture and inviting spoilage. Many seniors have experienced the disappointment of opening an avocado that looks fine on the outside but is grey or stringy on the inside. That is the fridge at work. So what's the best approach? Store avocados at room temperature until they're perfectly ripe. You'll know they're ready when they give slightly under gentle pressure. If you need to keep a ripe avocado for an extra day, you can place it in the fridge briefly, but no longer than that. For cut avocados, brush the flesh with lemon juice, cover tightly, and use it within 24 hours. Here's something to think about. How many of you have thrown away an avocado that looked perfect outside but was brown inside? It's one of the most common frustrations, and proper storage can prevent much of that waste. From avocados, let's move to another household staple that many seniors refrigerate without realising it changes both taste and texture: bread. Few foods carry the same comfort as a warm slice of bread, whether it's homemade, from the local bakery, or even a simple store-bought loaf. Bread has nourished cultures for thousands of years. But here's the truth. The refrigerator is the worst place to keep it. Why? Bread goes stale faster in the cold than it does at room temperature. This happens because of a process called retrogradation. The starch molecules in bread begin to crystallize when exposed to cold, which hardens the texture and dries it out. You may have noticed how bread kept in the fridge turns stiff and loses its soft chew, even when it's only a few days old. For seniors, this isn't just about taste. Stale bread is harder to digest and less enjoyable to eat, especially if chewing has already become a challenge. The comfort of bread is in its softness, and refrigeration strips that away. So what should you do instead? Keep bread in a bread box, cloth bag, or paper bag at room temperature. If you know you won't finish it within a few days, the freezer, not the fridge, is the best place. Frozen bread maintains its moisture, and when you reheat or toast it, the texture returns beautifully. Here's a question for you. How many of you put bread in the fridge because you wanted it to last longer? It's a common habit, but one that often leads to disappointment. Switching to room temperature storage or freezing extras will give you a fresher loaf every time. Now, bread is sensitive to cold, but there's one more fruit that suffers greatly in the fridge. It's sweet, it's juicy, and it's often misunderstood when it comes to storage: melons. Melons, whether it's watermelon, cantaloupe, or honeydew, are some of the most refreshing fruits you can enjoy. For seniors, they offer more than sweetness. They're made up of structured water, which hydrates the body at a cellular level. They also contain vitamins A and C, potassium for heart health, and antioxidants that reduce inflammation. A slice of melon on a warm day can be medicine as much as it is a treat. But here's what happens when melons are refrigerated before they're cut. The cold slows their ripening process. dulling both flavour and aroma. Instead of tasting sweet and fragrant, refrigerated melons often become bland. Studies have even shown that keeping whole melons in the fridge reduces their antioxidant levels, particularly vitamin C and carotenoids, which are vital for immunity and skin health. Once cut, melons do need refrigeration to prevent bacterial growth, but before that point, they are best kept at room temperature. A cool shaded countertop allows them to ripen fully, reaching peak sweetness and nutrition. After cutting, cover them tightly and refrigerate, but aim to eat them within 2 to 3 days for best flavour and safety. Here's something to reflect on. Have you ever cut open a melon that looked ripe but tasted flat? Chances are it was stored too cold before it had time to fully ripen. Allowing nature to complete the ripening process outside the fridge can transform the experience entirely. So we've journeyed through 10 foods that should never be refrigerated: potatoes, tomatoes, onions, honey, olive oil, bananas, apples, avocados, bread, and melons. Each of these foods loses something in the cold, whether it's flavour, texture, nutrients, or even safety. For seniors, this knowledge is more than kitchen trivia. It's about preserving the quality of the foods that support your health every single day. The choices we make in storage affect how our bodies receive nourishment, how enjoyable our meals are, and ultimately how strong and vibrant we feel. So let me leave you with this question. Which of these foods have you been keeping in the fridge without realizing the harm? And which one will you take out today? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to know. Because sometimes the simplest changes, like where you place your potatoes or how you store your honey, can have the biggest impact on your health and vitality.